Dude, it's hi, I'm Dean Ween.
Hello! This is going to be a very different video compared to my usual film and Wes Anderson related content, but I think it's going to be a really good one, so hang tight. I've been incredibly intrigued by the band Ween for some time. In the last few years I've heard their name pop up here and there, but confusing them for bands like Weezer and Wheatus, I dismiss them entirely. Nothing against Weezer or Wheatus, I'm just not that into their sound. I mean, Weezer has grown on me a bit, that's not the point of the video. It was only while watching season 2 of a little show called South Park, this episode called Chef Aid that Ween make a cameo appearance in, that I finally said, who are these guys? I looked them up, learned that Matt Stone and Trey Parker's band DVDA opened up for Ween a couple times, and that they directed one of their music videos. I also found out that they did the Ocean Man song that was in the SpongeBob movie, and how SpongeBob is actually very inspired by that album. But it wasn't until South Park's 25th anniversary concert, where Ween joined Matt and Trey along with the band Primus, that I actually listened to their music, and afterwards I finally looked them up on Spotify. I started at the beginning with their first studio album, and loved it so much that I obsessively listened to it over and over, and physically couldn't move on to the next album. Until now, that is. See, I find their discography very daunting. Not because it's very large, but because of the variety. Just based on the album covers, you can tell that each one has a very different vibe, and for me to take that on, I felt I had to break it up into steps, and really focus on one album at a time. So, without further ado, Ween are Aaron Freeman and Mickey Melchiondo, aka Gene Ween and Dean Ween, aka Jeaner and Diener. They formed at just 14 years old in New Hope, Pennsylvania. They are a psych rock, punk, funk, country, and indie/alt rock, just to name a few, band that's been active since 1984. They have 10 studio albums. They released their first studio album in 1990 and their most recent in 2007. Their logo is something called the Boognish, who is a demon god who appeared to Jeaner and Diener in their youth. So yeah, I read the Wikipedia. Isn't that amazing? But I'm not here to give a history lesson. I'm here to talk about the music. So let's start from the beginning. I already mentioned how I had not only listened to this album previous to making this video, but that I'm a massive fan of it. In a nutshell, God Ween Satan is a tonal disaster in the best way, and I love every second of it. There are 29 tracks ranging from punk to psychedelic to funk to Latin to folk to comedy to absurdism, from 18 seconds to 9 minutes. There's a song for every occasion. Before I continue, there is a word I learned when doing research for this video, and that word is brown. Brown, by definition of the band, is like effed up in a good way, bad but intentional, and that's the word they use to describe their sound, and man, this album's pretty brown. A few of my favorites on this album include Nicole. It's this upbeat reggae love song with beautiful harmonies, but if you listen to the lyrics, especially near the end, it gets very disturbing and intense, and I find it hilarious. Nan, which starts with this really awesome funk groove and then turns into this indie rock kind of sounding song, but the vocals over top don't match any of it. I just think it's a really cool song. LMLYP, which starts as a cover of Prince's Shockadelica and then becomes this really raunchy song. I'll let you listen to it, but for some reason I love it. It's really funky, has these really cool overlapping vocals. And another highlight is Birthday Boy. This song features some messages for Aaron Freeman, aka Jeaner, for what I assume is his 20th birthday. It's a very bittersweet song that I hold dear to my heart, as I just turned 20 last year around the time I first listened to this album, and I just really resonated with this song. Can we talk about that? These guys were just 20 when this came out. I find it insanely impressive the range these guys had so early on. But yeah, after listening to God Ween Satan for the 100th time, it was finally time to move on to Ween's second studio album. The pod feels much more cohesive in its production, which I can't decide if I like or not. I do think most of the album is not as memorable as the previous one. Some songs kind of blend together. I will say, great vocal effects on pretty much all songs. Some standouts on the album are of course Dr. Rock, which is an aptly titled super epic rock song. Only thing that would make it more epic would be higher fidelity, but then it wouldn't be brown. The Stallion, part 1 and 2 are really cool. Again, really great vocal effects. I really like that about this album. Right to the Ways and the Rules of the World reminded me a bit of Pink Floyd meets Bowie, but you know, if it was Ween. And Captain Fantasy, which is very Bowie, honestly reminded me a bit of Bowie by Flight of the Conchords. Love it. The album's production is a lot less dynamic than the first one. The best way I can describe the sound of the pod is muddy, grimy, dirty. I like this album. I don't think I loved it. I liked it for all the aspects I like in the first one. Pure Guava's production is the cleanest yet, but it does get a lot crazier on some tracks in the first 2 albums, and I had to turn my volume way down a couple times. Overall, I think I like the sound of this one more than the pod. Some album highlights are the Go and Get Tough from the Get-Go. Might be my favorite Ween song. I can't believe how good it is. I had to stop what I was doing when I first listened to it. It definitely sounds very Pet Shop Boys. I think it's hilarious, but also just an amazing track, and I love a Diener-fronted song. Spring Theme has an excellent bass line and percussion. I'm a big fan of Ween's use of pitch, high or low. And Don't Get Too Close to My Fantasy. It sounds very Ziggy Stardust, but still fully Ween, especially in its almost disturbing harmonies. Sorry, I don't know how to analyze music without comparing it to music I already love, but trust me, it's a compliment and it doesn't mean it's not unique. But yeah, Pure Guava is pretty awesome, man. And with that, we've covered the Brown trilogy, and it's time to move on to the next album. I understand why this album is titled that. Chocolate and cheese taste very different, but they almost feel like they pair together. And in a way, that's how I feel about this album. But yeah, I liked it. It seemed like the first album with a deliberate vision and a budget. I really like the opening track, Take Me Away. Has a really cool late 60s, early 70s sound, very Doors-ish. Some other highlights are Can't Put My Finger on It, a very fun song, really love the music in this one. Mr. Would You Please Help My Pony. It's Ween at its absolute weeniest. Like I said about some songs on the other albums, I really love the high-pitched vocals. Those are a Ween staple up to this point, and I'm intrigued to see how far into the discography it goes. And Voodoo Lady, which I don't know what to say about it except for it had me dancing. This was a really good album, but I think I like the abstract nature of the first 3 a bit more compared to this one. I wonder what the next one will sound like. Wait, country? I was a bit confused, but then I was like, why not? I'm probably more of a country fan in the past couple of years than I was previously, and by that I mean I just tolerate country now. So I wasn't against this album at all. This is a short one, at least compared to the previous 4. I was surprised when it ended. Overall, this album, not really my thing. I went in with the most open mind you can have, but this just isn't the kind of music I gravitate towards most of the time. A couple highlights though. There's Japanese Cowboy. The melody sounded so familiar, and I don't know where I've heard this before. Maybe I just know this song. And Piss Up a Rope, which is definitely the most Ween sounding thing on the album. I was familiar with a couple songs on this one from the South Park concert, and I previously know Ocean Man, and I love all those songs, so I was really looking forward to hearing the rest of the album. And this album is just amazing. It's kind of silly, but feels very mature. The production on this album is insane, especially on songs like Polka Dot Tail, which is for sure a standout, as well as The Mollusk. I love The Mollusk so much. I played it a bunch on my guitar last year. It's so relaxing and comforting. Really great. Mutilated Lips. I think this is a really cool song. Super peaceful. Love the vocal effects. Definitely one that's been on replay since I first heard it. Buckingham Green. It's such an epic and amazing song. This is the song that really stood out to me when I watched the South Park concert, so it's very possible that this song started this whole thing. And of course, Ocean Man. What a wacky and beautiful track. I can't help but smile listening to it. This was such a delight to listen to, and was probably the most fun I've had in my listening party so far. Really impressive stuff. From the title, I assumed this would be Beatlesque, and Kinda? Yeah, but more so in its spirit than its sound. As far as the sound goes, I'm not gonna say it didn't feel like Ween because it did, but it was missing something that every album has had so far, though I don't know what. A couple songs to mention though, even if you don't. This is such an upbeat sounding song, it kinda caught me off guard. Kinda sounds like Getting Better by the Beatles, with a bit of Daydream Believer by the Monkees. And Stroker Ace, which was very unexpected based on the first 4 tracks. It's this very hard rock song, but I was really into it. And Falling Out, which is a nice mellow song. Overall, probably my least favorite so far. I don't necessarily think it's bad, I just don't see myself listening to most of the album again. It's just not really my thing. I was really nervous for this one because I'd heard a lot about it and I had really high expectations and I just didn't want to dislike it. And then I heard Zoloft and I was instantly reassured. Zoloft is an insanely beautiful song. Wow. It's so dreamy and spacey. Honestly felt very Beatlesque with some of the sound effects and harmonies. Some other highlights include Tried and True. I swear I know this song. I must have heard it and it's been living in my subconscious somewhere. It's just very comforting and familiar feeling. Hey There Fancy Pants, which is so silly and unserious. I think there's some omnichord action in this song, which is my favorite instrument. And the Jam, which is awesome. It kind of sounds like this song Sci-Fi Wasabi by Cheapo Matto I love. Overall, I really liked it. It felt a lot more experimental than the last few albums, but not in the way of the first couple ones. Whatever they did that was different, good job. This didn't really feel like an intentionally crafted album, and that makes sense because apparently these are a bunch of, outtakes or older songs that never got studio recordings until this point. I don't think this was the most exciting album ever, but definitely not my least favorite so far. A couple standouts are Gabrielle. I love Gabrielle. It's been in my head for the entirety of writing this video. And Monique the Freak, which is basically LMLYP Part 2 with its Prince inspo. Overall, far from their best project, but I really enjoyed listening to all these songs from different eras in one. This was kind of strange. I think this album's really weird, but also extremely mediocre at times. I don't think there's really any standout songs on here, except there is this weird synth dance song called Friends. I didn't hate it, I was just mostly puzzled by it. Same with Fruit Man, what is going on there? Yeah, I don't think I really loved any of the songs on this one. I just couldn't take it seriously, and it's for sure the least memorable of all the albums. Sucks to end on such a low. So there it is, every Ween album. It's so rare for me to do a deep dive on an artist because, and especially in the case of Ween, I get so fixated on one era of their discography and then I don't explore out of it. But I'm so glad I did this, especially with such a weird, exciting, unique, and broad band. So now that I've listened to all these albums, which one was my favorite? Which one was my least favorite? Was I surprised or disappointed? And do I consider myself a Ween fan? All good questions, thanks for asking. I think my favorite is still God Ween Satan, but one that was new to me that I really liked was Pure Guava. I have to say my least favorite is La Cucaracha, just because there wasn't really any standout songs for me. I wasn't so much surprised as I didn't have low expectations, but there was much more delight than disappointment. I will say I was surprised by the song Go and Get Tough though. That's what we learned today. That is the greatest song of all time. No lie there. There was still some disappointment though. I wasn't the biggest fan of White Pepper, which I did have high expectations for, and the final album being kinda mediocre didn't feel great. And after all this, do I consider myself a Ween fan? 100% yes. What I love about Ween is they have something for everyone, but they still let what makes them Ween shine through everything. You could listen to one album only and still get pretty much the full Ween experience. Doing this deep dive was so fun, and I recommend everyone watching do the same, because who knows, you might find your new favorite band. Thanks for watching. I really loved making this because instead of recapping media I've already experienced, this time I got to experience this new area of music I was missing completely while simultaneously creating this video. I'd love to keep doing these as this was probably the most rewarding video I've made yet, so if anyone has suggestions for artists I should do a full album deep dive of, comment them, please! Again, thanks for watching this video and going on this journey, and yeah, see you later.